Have you ever found yourself wondering if a woman is interested in you romantically? Deciphering someone's attraction can sometimes feel like trying to solve a complex puzzle, but the truth is that women often communicate their interest through consistent behavioral patterns and body language. While verbal communication is important, nonverbal cues frequently reveal deeper feelings that words alone might not express. In this expanded guide, I'll explore in detail the various signals that suggest a woman is attracted to you, from subtle micro-expressions to more overt gestures. Understanding these indicators can help you navigate social interactions with greater confidence and awareness, potentially opening doors to meaningful connections. Intense eye contact and visual scanning. When a woman is physically attracted to you, her eyes often become one of her most expressive features. The eyes, commonly referred to as windows to the soul, frequently betray romantic interest before any words are exchanged. You might notice her giving you prolonged, intense gazes that feel significantly more meaningful than casual glances shared between friends or acquaintances. Pay particular attention to her visual scanning patterns. An interested woman will often visually trace your features in a deliberate sequence, perhaps starting with your eyes, moving to your lips, and sometimes continuing down to observe your physique before returning to meet your gaze again. This visual journey isn't random. It represents her subconscious mind evaluating you as a potential partner. For example, imagine you're sharing dinner at a restaurant. Between bites and conversation, you might catch her eyes making a subtle journey from your face to your shoulders, perhaps noticing how your shirt fits across your chest before returning to your eyes with renewed interest. If this happens repeatedly throughout your interaction, it's a strong indicator that she's not just engaged in what you're saying, she's actively appreciating your physical presence and finding it appealing. This kind of visual attention differs from ordinary eye contact in both duration and quality. While polite conversation involves regular eye contact, attraction-based gazing tends to linger longer and convey more emotional depth. The difference might be subtle at first, but with practice, you'll learn to distinguish between polite attention and genuine attraction. The genuine Duchenne. A smile can speak volumes about someone's feelings, but not all smiles carry the same significance. Psychologists have long distinguished between social smiles, used primarily for politeness, and genuine expressions of happiness, often called the Duchenne smile, named after the French neurologist who first studied this phenomenon. When a woman gives you a genuine Duchenne smile, her entire face becomes involved in the expression. Unlike a polite social smile that primarily engages the mouth, a genuine smile activates the orbicularis oculi muscles around the eyes, creating characteristic crinkles and a noticeable sparkle. This authentic expression cannot be easily faked, making it one of the most reliable indicators of true enjoyment and attraction. Consider this scenario. You share an anecdote or joke during conversation, and she responds with a smile that transforms her entire face. Her eyes narrow slightly and light up, creases form at the corners, and her cheeks rise naturally. This full-face engagement indicates that her happiness is genuine rather than performative. She's not smiling because social convention dictates it. She's smiling because your presence and interaction truly bring her joy. Moreover, the frequency and spontaneity of these genuine smiles matter significantly. If you notice her breaking into authentic smiles regularly throughout your interactions, especially at moments that wouldn't necessarily warrant such expressions in ordinary conversation, it suggests she associates positive emotions with your presence. This pattern of genuine smiling creates an emotional feedback loop that strengthens attraction and builds comfortable rapport between you. Touching her neck, collarbone, or hair self-touching behaviors often reveal subconscious psychological states, particularly when it comes to attraction and nervousness. When a woman is interested in you romantically, you might observe her engaging in specific self-touching gestures that suggest both vulnerability and a desire to appear attractive. The neck and collarbone region is particularly significant in this context. Evolutionary psychologists suggest that exposing or drawing attention to these areas represents a subconscious signal of trust and openness. When she lightly brushes her fingers along her collarbone, adjusts her necklace repeatedly, or gently touches the side of her neck during your conversation, she may be unconsciously highlighting these sensitive, vulnerable areas. Hair touching and manipulation is another common indicator of attraction. You might notice her twirling a strand of hair around her finger, tucking hair behind her ear, or flipping her hair while maintaining eye contact. These gestures serve multiple purposes. They draw attention to features she believes are attractive, release nervous energy generated by your presence, and often function as self-soothing behaviors when experiencing the exciting discomfort that accompanies attraction. For instance, during an engaging conversation at a social gathering, if she laughs at something you've said while simultaneously brushing her fingers along her collarbone or adjusting her hair, these combined behaviors likely indicate she's experiencing attraction-based nervousness. This nervousness isn't negative. Rather, it suggests she values your perception of her and wants to make a positive impression. These self-touching behaviors become particularly meaningful when they occur primarily or exclusively in your presence. If you notice these patterns emerging specifically during your interactions while absent when she speaks with others, it strengthens the likelihood that these gestures are responses to attraction rather than habitual movements. Flirtatious body language and postural shifts. Human bodies instinctively orient towards sources of interest and pleasure, a principle that becomes readily apparent when attraction is present. A woman who's interested in you will often display this attraction through subtle and sometimes not so subtle adjustments to her physical positioning and posture. One of the most telling indicators is the direction of her body orientation. When attracted to you, her torso will naturally align to face you more directly, even in group settings where her attention could be divided among multiple people. This alignment represents her subconscious prioritizing you as the focus of her attention and energy. Watch for leaning behaviors during conversation. While platonic interactions typically maintain a comfortable conversational distance, attraction often creates a gravitational pull that causes her to reduce this interpersonal space. She might lean forward across a table, tilt her head attentively when you speak, or position herself at an angle that creates a sense of privacy between you even in public settings. Postural enhancements are another key aspect of attraction-based body language. You might notice her subtly adjusting her posture to appear more confident and physically appealing, straightening her back to emphasize her profile, adjusting her position to highlight features she considers attractive, or adopting open postures that communicate receptiveness and interest. For example, imagine you're seated at a cafe table sharing stories. As the conversation deepens, you might observe her gradually shifting position, perhaps sitting taller, angling her body to face you more directly, and leaning forward slightly when you speak about something personal or emotionally significant. These adjustments aren't random. They represent her body's natural response to attraction and engagement. Additionally, watch for barrier removal behaviors. When attracted to someone, people instinctively remove physical barriers between themselves and the object of their interest. She might move her purse aside, push away a water glass that sits between you, or position her arms in open rather than crossed positions. These subtle adjustments symbolically and literally clear the path for greater connection. Initiating and sustaining physical contact. Physical touch represents one of the clearest escalations from friendly interest to romantic attraction. When a woman is romantically interested in you, she'll likely find opportunities to establish physical contact in ways that might seem casual but are actually quite intentional. These touches often begin with socially acceptable, brief contacts that provide plausible deniability while testing your receptiveness. She might lightly touch your forearm to emphasize a point in conversation, brush her fingers against yours while reaching for something, or playfully push your shoulder after a joke. While each instance might seem incidental in isolation, a pattern of increasing frequency or duration suggests deliberate intent. The location of these touches also carries significance. Initial touches typically occur on safe areas like arms or shoulders, but as comfort and attraction grow, these contacts might migrate to more personal zones. A touch on the back of your hand, adjusting your collar, or briefly resting her hand on your knee all represent escalating levels of intimacy and interest. Context enhances the meaning of these physical interactions. For example, if she reaches across a table to touch your arm during conversation when such movement requires effort, this suggests stronger intent than if the same touch occurred when you were already sitting close together. Similarly, touches that linger slightly longer than necessary for functional purposes often indicate attraction rather than mere friendliness. Response touches are particularly revealing. If you initiate innocent contact, such as a light touch on her shoulder to emphasize a point, and she responds by either prolonging that contact moment or reciprocating with a touch of her own rather than creating distance, this mutual engagement in physical dialogue strongly suggests attraction. For instance, imagine sharing a funny story at a social gathering. As you deliver the punchline, she laughs and naturally places her hand on your forearm, allowing it to remain there a moment, longer than strictly necessary. Later, when walking together, she creates a situation where your shoulders or arms brush accidentally. These patterns of contact-seeking behavior, especially when repeated across different interactions, reliably indicate romantic rather than purely platonic interest. Seeking and maintaining physical proximity management, how people regulate physical distance between themselves and others, reveals volumes about interpersonal dynamics and attraction. When a woman is attracted to you, she'll instinctively attempt to minimize the physical space separating you, creating opportunities for closeness that might not occur in purely platonic interactions. This proximity-seeking behavior manifests in numerous ways. In group settings, you might notice her gravitating toward your location, perhaps joining conversations you're participating in, or positioning herself nearby even when engaged with others. She might choose seats adjacent to yours in group arrangements, or angle herself toward you even when officially involved in different conversational clusters. In one-on-one situations, this proximity management becomes even more apparent. Rather than maintaining the standard social distance appropriate for acquaintances, typically 3 to 4 feet, she might gradually decrease this space during your interaction. She could choose to sit beside rather than across from you at a restaurant table, position herself closer than strictly necessary when showing you something on her phone, or find reasons to enter your personal space briefly before retreating. Consistency of these proximity patterns matters significantly. While coincidental closeness happens occasionally in any interaction, a woman who's attracted to you will demonstrate persistent patterns of minimizing distance across different contexts and environments. This consistency distinguishes attraction-based proximity from circumstantial closeness. Consider this example. During a group outing to a movie theater, she maneuvers to sit next to you rather than with other friends. During the film, she positions herself so your arms share the armrest between seats. Later, at a restaurant, she chooses the seat directly beside you rather than across the table. This pattern of deliberate closeness across different environments strongly suggests she's comfortable with you and actively seeking greater physical connection. Physical barriers also play a role in proximity dynamics. An interested woman might position her belongings, purse, jacket, phone, closer to your space than to others, creating a subtle shared territory between you. These object placements serve as bridge-building behaviors, symbolically connecting your respective personal spaces while maintaining appropriate social boundaries. Strategic leg positioning and lower body orientation. While many people focus on facial expressions and upper body language when assessing attraction, lower body positioning often provides equally valuable and sometimes more honest information about someone's interest level. Our legs and feet, being furthest from our conscious awareness, frequently reveal subconscious attitudes and attractions that more controlled facial expressions might conceal. When a woman crosses her legs toward you rather than away, this represents a significant indicator of engagement and interest. This orientation physically directs her energy toward you while creating a more open and receptive posture. Body language experts consider this positioning particularly telling because lower limb movements typically operate with less conscious oversight than facial expressions or hand gestures. Foot pointing provides another reliable clue about attraction. Our feet instinctively orient toward subjects of interest or potential paths of movement. If you notice her feet consistently pointed in your direction, even when her upper body might be temporarily engaged elsewhere, such as when others join your conversation, this lower body alignment suggests you remain her primary focus despite divided attention. Leg crossing dynamics can reveal changing comfort levels and attraction. For instance, if she initially sits with legs crossed away or in a more closed position, but gradually shifts to cross them toward you as your interaction progresses, this transition reflects growing comfort and interest. Similarly, if she uncrosses her legs while speaking with you, transitioning to a more open posture, this often indicates increasing comfort and trust. Imagine this scenario. You're seated at a cafe table engaged in conversation. Initially, she sits with her legs crossed, away from you at an angle. As your discussion deepens and rapport builds, you notice her subtly repositioning, perhaps first adjusting to cross her legs in your direction, and later, as comfort grows, uncrossing them to adopt an open, relaxed posture with both feet pointing toward you. These progressive postural shifts track the development of comfort and attraction throughout your interaction. Additionally, watch for mirrored leg positioning. If she unconsciously adopts leg positions similar to yours shortly after, you change your own posture. This mirroring behavior indicates rapport and engagement. While this alone doesn't guarantee romantic interest, when combined with other attraction signals, it strengthens the overall pattern, suggesting more than friendly attention. Facial microexpressions, parted lips, and pupil dilation. Some of the most powerful indicators of attraction appear as subtle, fleeting facial microexpressions that occur involuntarily and reveal genuine emotional states before conscious control can mask them. These expressions typically last for fractions of a second, but convey authentic reactions that more sustained expressions might conceal. Slightly parted lips represent one of the most telling microexpressions associated with attraction. This expression occurs when someone is both relaxed and engaged simultaneously, a combination frequently present during states of attraction. When you notice her listening to you with slightly parted lips rather than a tightly closed mouth, or if she momentarily parts her lips when making eye contact, these small gestures often reveal authentic interest. This parted lips expression relates to what psychologists call the freeze response, a momentary suspension of normal movement that occurs when we encounter something surprising or captivating. In attraction contexts, this brief pause with parted lips suggests she finds something about you momentarily mesmerizing or worthy of heightened attention. Pupil dilation provides another involuntary physiological response to attraction. When someone sees something or someone appealing, their pupils naturally dilate, a response controlled by the autonomic nervous system and therefore nearly impossible to fake. In good lighting conditions where this dilation isn't caused by darkness, noticeably enlarged pupils while making eye contact strongly suggest authentic attraction. For example, imagine sharing a personal story during dinner. As you reach an emotionally resonant moment in your narrative, you glance up to find her watching you with slightly parted lips and widened pupils, appearing momentarily caught in that suspended state of heightened attention. Though the expression might last only an instant before she responds verbally, that brief unguarded moment reveals genuine engagement and potential attraction. Blushing represents another involuntary physiological response worth noting. If you observe a slight flush appearing on her cheeks, neck, or chest during your interaction, particularly when you offer a compliment or share a moment of increased eye contact, this autonomic response reveals emotional activation that often accompanies attraction. These microexpressions and physiological responses are particularly valuable because they occur beyond conscious control, making them more reliable indicators of genuine feeling than carefully managed expressions or deliberate gestures. 9. Mirroring behaviors and synchronization. Behavioral mirroring, the unconscious tendency to adopt another person's gestures, expressions, and speech patterns, represents one of the strongest indicators of rapport and potential attraction. This phenomenon, sometimes called the chameleon effect by psychologists, occurs naturally when we feel connected to someone and want to strengthen that bond. When a woman is attracted to you, she might unconsciously begin matching various aspects of your behavior. This mirroring can manifest in numerous ways. Adopting similar postures shortly after you change position, using hand gestures that echo yours during conversation, matching your speaking pace and volume, or even incorporating your unique phrases or expressions into her own vocabulary. For instance, if you have a characteristic way of emphasizing points during conversation, perhaps tapping the table lightly or using a particular hand gesture, you might notice her beginning to use similar movements when expressing her thoughts. If you speak with certain verbal patterns or have favorite expressions like absolutely perfect or that's fascinating, she might begin incorporating these phrases into her own speech during your interactions. This mirroring extends beyond isolated gestures to include broader behavioral synchronization. You might notice your movements becoming naturally coordinated, reaching for drinks simultaneously, shifting positions in chairs at similar moments, or falling into matched breathing patterns during close conversation. This synchronization creates a dance-like quality to your interaction that both reflects and reinforces connection. The timing of mirrored behaviors provides important context for interpretation. Immediate mirroring, matching your movements instantly, can sometimes indicate conscious mimicry, while delayed mirroring, adopting similar positions or gestures several seconds or minutes after you, typically reflects genuine unconscious connection. The latter tends to be more reliable as an attraction indicator since it operates below the threshold of conscious awareness. For example, during an extended conversation at a social event, you might shift from leaning forward to sitting back in your chair while making a point. A minute or two later, without apparent awareness, she adopts a similar reclined position. Later, when you cross your legs, she eventually adjusts to mirror this position as well. These delayed adoptions of your posture suggest genuine rapport, rather than deliberate copying. When this mirroring extends across multiple communication channels simultaneously, matching posture, gesture, speaking pace, and vocal tone, it creates a powerful sense of connection that both participants can feel, even if they don't consciously recognize the source of this harmony. Increased self-disclosure and curiosity. Emotional intimacy often precedes physical intimacy, and a woman who's attracted to you will typically demonstrate this through patterns of escalating self-disclosure and genuine curiosity about your life. These conversational patterns reveal her interest in establishing deeper connection beyond surface-level interaction. When attracted to someone, people naturally share more personal information than they would in ordinary social exchanges. You might notice her gradually revealing more meaningful aspects of her life, her hopes, fears, past experiences, or future aspirations as your conversation progresses. This vulnerability indicates trust and a desire to be known more authentically. The pacing of this self-disclosure provides important contextual information. Healthy attraction typically involves a graduated exchange, where sharing deepens naturally, over time, with both participants reciprocating similar levels of openness. This creates a balanced conversational dance where vulnerability is matched and respected. Equally telling is her level of curiosity about your life and experiences. A woman who's romantically interested will ask thoughtful follow-up questions that demonstrate she's not only listening to your words, but actively processing and engaging with their meaning. Rather than waiting for her turn to speak, she builds upon your statements with questions that explore your perspectives, memories, and feelings. For instance, if you mention briefly that you lived in another city for a few years, a merely polite, conversational partner might acknowledge this fact before moving on to another topic. However, someone who's attracted to you might inquire about what brought you there, how the experience shaped you, whether you'd consider returning someday, or what aspects of that place you miss most. These questions reveal her desire to construct a more complete understanding of your life journey. For instance, if you mention briefly that you lived in another city for a few years, a merely polite conversational partner might acknowledge this fact before moving on to another topic. However, someone who's attracted to you might inquire about what brought you there, how the experience shaped you, whether you'd consider returning someday, or what aspects of that place you miss most. These questions reveal her desire to construct a more complete understanding of your life journey. Notice particularly if she remembers details from previous conversations and references them naturally in new contexts. This demonstration of attentiveness, recalling your coffee preference, remembering stories about your family, or noting your opinion on a topic discussed weeks earlier, suggests you occupy space in her thoughts beyond your immediate interactions. Additionally, watch for conversation extensions when natural endings arise. If she creates new discussion threads as the conversation could otherwise conclude, asking another question, or introducing a related topic just as you're preparing to part ways, this often indicates she's enjoying your interaction and wishes to prolong it. 11. Schedule prioritization and availability. How someone manages their time and availability in relation to you speaks volumes about their interest level. When a woman is attracted to you, she'll typically demonstrate this through consistent patterns of prioritizing opportunities to spend time together, even when doing so requires adjusting other aspects of her schedule. Watch for responsiveness to invitations. While everyone has legitimate constraints on their time, someone who's interested in you will generally respond promptly to messages or invitations rather than leaving you waiting for replies. Moreover, if she must decline an invitation due to genuine conflicts, she'll likely suggest alternative times or opportunities rather than simply saying no without proposing other options. Initiative and planning represents another significant indicator. If she reaches out to suggest activities or meetings without always waiting for you to initiate, this proactive approach strongly suggests she values your company and wants to ensure regular connection. This initiative might take various forms, suggesting coffee after noticing you're both free on a particular afternoon, sharing information about an event she thinks you'd enjoy, or creating reasons to collaborate on projects or activities. Pay attention to her willingness to adjust her schedule to accommodate shared time. While healthy relationships always respect existing commitments, someone who's attracted to you will demonstrate reasonable flexibility when opportunities arise. This might involve rearranging non-essential appointments, adjusting her typical routine, or making special arrangements to create space for connecting with you. For example, imagine suggesting an impromptu lunch during a workday. A woman who's interested might respond by rearranging her schedule to make this possible, perhaps moving a flexible meeting to later in the day, or working through what would have been her normal lunch hour the previous day to create availability. These adjustments, especially when made without complaint or expectation of recognition, indicate she values possibilities for connection with you. Consistency in this prioritization matters significantly. A single instance of availability might simply reflect a genuinely open schedule, but a pattern of consistent availability and scheduling accommodation over time strongly suggests intentional prioritization motivated by attraction and interest in developing a deeper connection. Digital communication patterns and responsiveness. In our increasingly connected world, digital communication patterns provide valuable insights into someone's level of interest. A woman who's attracted to you will typically demonstrate distinctive texting, messaging, and social media behaviors that reflect her desire to maintain connection even when physically separated. Response timing offers one of the clearest indicators. In digital communication, while everyone experiences legitimate delays occasionally, someone who's interested will generally respond to your messages relatively promptly. More telling than absolute response time is the consistency of her communication pattern with you compared to her typical behavior with others. If she responds to you significantly faster than her usual pace with friends or acquaintances, this prioritization suggests special interest. Message length and detail level frequently correlate with interest. Brief, functional responses generally indicate lower engagement, while longer, more detailed messages suggest she's investing time and thought into your conversation. Watch particularly for unprompted elaboration, offering additional information beyond what your question or statement strictly required, introducing new topics, or sharing personal thoughts and experiences without direct prompting. Conversation. Continuation behaviors are especially revealing. Notice whether she tends to conclude exchanges with questions or statements that invite further response, keeping the conversation flowing rather than allowing it to reach natural endpoints. Similarly, if she initiates new conversation threads when previous ones conclude, this demonstrates desire to maintain connection and engagement with you. For example, rather than simply answering your question about her weekend plans with just "dinner with friends on Saturday," she might elaborate, "I'm having dinner with some college friends on Saturday at that new Italian place downtown. Have you tried it yet? Sunday, I'm finally tackling that hiking trail I mentioned last week. What about you? Any interesting plans?" This elaboration and reciprocal questioning creates ongoing conversation opportunities rather than allowing the exchange to conclude. Digital. Communication also reveals interest through attention to personal context. If she remembers details from previous conversations and references them naturally in new exchanges, recalls your schedule or commitments without reminding, or asks follow-up questions about events or situations you've previously mentioned, this demonstrates that you occupy her thoughts between interactions. Additionally, pay attention to her use of emoticons, gifts, or other expressive elements in digital communication. Someone who's attracted often employs these tools to add emotional texture to otherwise plain text, creating greater intimacy and connection in digital spaces. Playful or flirtatious elements in these exchanges, slightly suggestive emojis, teasing gifs, or playful banter, further strengthen the likelihood that her interest extends beyond friendship. Conclusion: interpreting patterns rather than isolated behaviors. Understanding a woman's attraction requires recognizing patterns of behavior rather than focusing on isolated actions. While any single behavior described in this guide might occasionally appear in non-romantic contexts, the consistent appearance of multiple indicators across different situations and timeframes significantly increases the reliability of your interpretation. Context always matters in behavioral analysis. The same gesture that strongly indicates attraction in one situation might have different significance in another. Cultural backgrounds, individual personality differences, and professional contexts all influence how attraction signals manifest. Someone naturally gregarious and physically expressive with everyone will demonstrate different baseline behaviors than someone typically more reserved. The progression of these behaviors over time provides essential information for accurate interpretation. Healthy attraction typically follows a pattern of gradual escalation in both verbal and nonverbal behaviors, increasing from subtle cues to more overt expressions as comfort and mutual interest establish themselves. This natural progression creates a communication dance where both parties can gauge interest and respond appropriately. Remember that genuine connection develops through authentic interaction rather than strategic analysis. While understanding these signals helps you recognize potential interest, responding with authenticity and respect creates the foundation for meaningful connection. Rather than approaching these indicators as a checklist to be tallied, use them as general guidance for recognizing when someone might be open to deeper connection. Most importantly, when you notice potential signs of interest, consider creating appropriate opportunities for clarity through respectful conversation or by reciprocating subtle escalations in ways that allow her to respond comfortably. The most meaningful connections develop when both people feel free to express interest authentically and have that interest received with equal genuineness and respect. By developing your awareness of these behavioral patterns, you can navigate social interactions with greater confidence and sensitivity, recognizing opportunities for connection while respecting others' boundaries and communication styles.